Title: No one knew the Mafia boss's virgin daughter was pregnant until tonight. They thought the Mafia boss's virgin daughter was pure, but tonight, his empire will fall. Welcome back, Moonlight Dreamers. And if you're new, welcome to our channel where you don't find captivating stories. It finds you. If you love romantic tales that stir your heart and haunt your sleep, make sure to like, subscribe, and let the moon guide you home each night. Let's dive back into our story. The chandeliers of the Moretti mansion burned with gold that night, each crystal trembling as violins sang over murmurs of wealth and power. Don Raphael Moretti, patriarch of Italy's most feared family, raised his glass as the crowd applauded. Beside him stood Elena Moretti, radiant in a silver gown, beauty carved in discipline. Every gesture precise, every smile rehearsed. She had been trained for this moment, to be her father's legacy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Don Raphael declared, voice as deep as gunmetal, "behold the future of the Moretti name." Elena's heart thudded. The words should have felt like honor, but instead they sounded like a sentence. The applause shattered into chaos. A blast tore through the gardens, glass rained down, chandeliers swayed, and screams filled the ballroom. Bodyguards swarmed the Don. Smoke bled through the windows as Raphael pulled Elena close, shielding her behind his coat. "Get her out," he barked. Elena trembled as they hurried through the corridor lined with family portraits. All eyes in the painting seemed to follow her, accusing, knowing. Minutes later, the mansion's security sealed the estate. The guests were evacuated. Don Raphael, untouched by panic, stood in his study surrounded by silence. Elena entered hesitantly. "Papa, who would attack us?" His gaze hardened. "Enemies never sleep, figlia mia. But tonight's attack wasn't meant for me, it was a warning." Her pulse quickened. A warning for what? He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it barely existed. "You are never to enter the East Wing again, not for any reason, do you understand?" She frowned. "Why? It's just storage." His hand slammed the desk. "Do you understand?" The thunder in his tone froze her. She nodded, eyes wide. Raphael's face softened just enough to show fear, not of her, but for her. "There are doors that once opened cannot be closed. Promise me, Elena," she whispered. "I promise." Hours later, the mansion lay wrapped in uneasy quiet. Guards patrolled outside. Elena sat by her window, replaying the explosion, and her father's trembling hand. The East Wing loomed across the courtyard, its windows dark. Then, a sound. Soft, fragile, a baby's cry. Elena froze. Again, faint, muffled, from the East Wing. She rose, barefoot, drawn by something beyond reason. The corridor stretched before her like a tunnel of secrets. The cry came again, sharper this time, urgent, real. Her hand reached for the forbidden door handle. Her father's voice echoed in her head. "There are doors that once opened." Click. The lock turned. The door creaked open. Darkness swallowed her silhouette. The air inside the East Wing felt colder, heavier, as Elena stepped past the threshold. The light from her candle trembled, painting shaky halos on the dusty wallpaper. Shadows stretched like hands along the corridor, and the faint, sorrowful cry guided her deeper inside. She whispered, "Hello?" Only silence replied, except for that soft wail echoing from somewhere ahead. Her bare feet touched cracked marble. Cobwebs brushed her gown. This part of the mansion felt forgotten, untouched for years. Paint peeled off the walls and portraits hung askew, their faces faded with time. The cry came again, louder now. Elena followed the sound to a white door at the far end of the hall, its brass handle glinting faintly in her candlelight. The paint around it was newer, too clean compared to the rot around it. Someone had been here recently. She hesitated, heart pounding. Then a low metallic click, a gun being cocked, a shadow detached from the wall. "Elena?" a man's voice whispered. She turned sharply. It was Luca Romano, her father's lieutenant, tall, sharp-jawed, and loyal to a fault. His dark suit blended with the shadows. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his whisper harsh with panic. "I heard something. A baby," she said, gripping the candle tighter. Luca's eyes flicked toward the door. "You shouldn't have come. You don't know what you've stepped into." "What's in there?" she pressed. "Why is it locked?" "Elena, please," Luca said, stepping closer. "Forget what you heard. Go back to your room, for your safety, and mine." Her jaw tightened. "For my safety? From what?" He hesitated, looking genuinely torn. "Some truths, Signorina, burn everything they touch. Your father built this empire to keep certain ghosts buried. Don't dig them up." Elena took a bold step toward the door. "If there's a child in there, I'm not leaving." Luca's voice cracked. "That's not a child you can save." The air between them thickened with unspoken fear. Somewhere behind the door, the crying stopped, replaced by a faint lullaby, a woman's voice humming softly. Elena's breath caught. "There's someone else inside." Before she could speak again, Luca snatched the candle from her hand and blew it out. Darkness swallowed them whole. "Elena," he whispered, his tone desperate now. "Your father would kill us both if he knew you were here. Please, go." But she didn't move. Her eyes had adjusted just enough to catch a glimmer on the floor, something metallic, glinting near her slipper. She crouched, fingers brushing the cold marble. It was a bracelet. Small, gold, the kind worn by newborns. Her candleless fingers traced the engraving under the dust. E.M. Her initials. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She looked up, but Luca was gone. The door at the end of the hall stood ajar now, a pale light seeping through the crack like dawn through fog. And then, the lullaby stopped. A faint whisper drifted out, childlike and trembling. "Elena." The candle rolled from her hand, clattering against the floor as the light inside the nursery suddenly flickered out. The whisper still echoed in Elena's mind long after the east wing door slammed shut. Elena. Her name, spoken from the dark. She ran through the hallway breathless, her gown clinging to her as though the walls themselves were chasing her out. The sound of her heartbeat drowned everything else. When she finally reached her room, she bolted the door and leaned against it, trembling. The house was silent again, too silent. Had she imagined it? The baby's cry, the bracelet, the whisper? She looked at the golden bracelet in her palm, small, real, engraved with E.M. It gleamed faintly even in the low lamplight. There was no denying it. Someone or something knew her name before she ever entered that room. She barely slept. By dawn, her mind was restless with one thought: answers. That morning, Don Raphael acted as if nothing had happened. Over breakfast, he discussed trade deals and upcoming negotiations, as though the explosion and the East Wing never existed. His calmness unsettled her more than his rage, but as he left for his meeting, she caught a small detail. He locked his study drawer with a key he kept around his neck. Her father guarded secrets the way others guarded life itself. And now, she was done waiting for permission. As dusk fell, Elna slipped silently down the marble staircase, her steps light as dust. The study door creaked open after 3 careful turns of a stolen master key she'd lifted from Luca weeks ago. The room smelled of cigars and oak. Moonlight cut through the curtains, illuminating the massive mahogany desk and the computer that hummed quietly on its surface. She sat. Her fingers trembled as she typed his password guesses. Family birthdays, business codes, even her mother's name. None worked until she tried E.M. The screen flickered to life. Her pulse spiked. Dozens of folders appeared, accounts, shipment logs, encrypted correspondence, but one folder sat apart, highlighted in red, its name, Project EM. Elena hesitated. Her initials again. She clicked it open. A black window appeared, asking for a passcode. Below it, a warning flashed. Access restricted. Genetic files protected under Moretti Directive. Her eyes widened. Genetic files? She pressed a few keys, desperate to override the encryption. Lines of code spilled across the screen. Numbers, dates, medical tags. Then a small preview image blinked in the corner. A hospital room, sterile and white, with a name tag on the bassinet. She leaned closer, heart hammering. EM. A creak behind her froze her blood. The study door was open. The faint scent of cigar smoke filled the air again. Slowly the lamplight shifted, swallowed by a shadow that stretched across the floor and climbed up the wall, reaching the desk, the screen, and then her. A deep, calm voice broke the silence. "I warned you not to open certain doors, Elena." Her father's silhouette stood in the doorway, towering, motionless, but his eyes, sharp and glinting in the dark, told her he already knew what she'd seen. The computer beeped once. A hidden camera light blinked red. Elena froze as her father's voice filled the study. "I warned you not to open certain doors, Elena." The air thickened. The glow of the monitor reflected in Don Raphael's eyes like firelight. He stepped forward, calm but lethal, his silence cutting sharper than a scream. I was only looking for family files," she stammered. His gaze landed on the glowing red folder. Project EM. He shut the laptop with a single decisive click. "Family files are mine to open," he said coldly. "You're my daughter, not my partner." Elena's fingers trembled on her lap. "Then why are there genetic records? Why does that file bear my initials?" Raphael didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket and placed the bracelet she'd found on the desk, perfectly clean, polished, as though it had never left his possession. "You dropped this," he said softly. Elena's breath hitched. He knew she'd been in the East Wing. "From now on," he said, voice dangerously even, "you go nowhere alone. The world is not safe for Moretti blood." He left her there, the bracelet glinting accusingly between them. Days later, the Moretti estate opened its gates for the annual charity gala, a showcase of the family's wealth and honor. Flashbulbs popped as journalists circled, trying to glimpse the daughter of the Mafia's most feared man. Elena stood by the fountain, smile frozen in place. She could still feel her father's warning heavy on her chest. Then a voice, low, calm, uninvited, brushed her ear. "You wear secrets like perfume, Miss Moretti." She turned. A man in a dark gray suit stood beside her, tie loosened, press badge glinting faintly. Adrian Voss, investigative journalist. His eyes held the kind of curiosity that could get people killed. "I'm sorry," she said, forcing politeness. "This event isn't open for interviews." "I'm not here for your father," Adrian replied, sipping his drink. "I'm here for you." That caught her off guard. "Me?" He leaned closer, voice barely audible over the music. "Because I know what happened to your mother." Elena's pulse spiked. "My mother died in a car crash when I was 6. Adrian's smile was small, knowing. "That's the story you were told." He reached into his coat and slid a small photograph toward her. "But I've seen the file they buried. The night she died, she wasn't alone. She was holding a baby." Elena stared at him. "That's impossible." "Maybe," he said, "but impossible things happen often around Don Raphael." Security began moving toward them. Adrian stepped back into the crowd. "If you want answers, meet me tomorrow, Pier 12. Midnight." Before she could respond, he vanished into the sea of tuxedos and diamonds. Later, back in her car, Elena unfolded the photo again under the faint interior light. Her breath caught in her throat. The picture showed Don Raphael, younger but unmistakable, standing in what looked like a hospital room. He was holding a newborn wrapped in white silk, and the baby was dressed in the exact same gown Elena wore in her childhood portraits. The ink on the back was smudged, but 3 letters were still clear. E.M. Her fingers shook as headlights swept across her car window. Her driver leaned forward nervously. "Miss, there's someone watching us." Elena turned toward the mirror, and through the glass, she saw him, Adrian Voss, standing across the street, not smiling this time, just watching. Elena's breath fogged the car window as she stared out. Adrian Voss stood across the street, half lit by a flickering lamppost, his face unreadable. The city hummed around them, cars passing, music echoing faintly from the gala. But between them stretched a silence that felt almost deliberate. Then a single sound shattered it. The church bell from Santa Lucia, tolling midnight. Adrian turned and disappeared into the shadows. By morning, Elena hadn't slept. Her father was already gone for a business meeting, leaving her alone with her thoughts, and the photo that refused to leave her mind. Why did the gown match hers? Why did Adrian know about her mother's final night? The questions led her to a place she hadn't visited in years, the old family chapel, perched on the edge of the Moretti estate, like a forgotten relic. Father Matteo, the aging family priest, still tended it. His hands trembled as he lit candles by the altar. When he saw her, his eyes widened with both joy and fear. "Elena, child, what brings you here? Your father forbade—" "I need answers," she cut in. "About my mother. And about me." He stared at her for a long moment, the candlelight flickering in his pupils. Then slowly he locked the chapel doors. "What I tell you cannot leave this place," he whispered. "Don Raphael once swore an oath, before God and the family, to protect the last Moretti heir at any cost." Elena frowned. "But I am the heir." Matteo's expression tightened. "Perhaps, or perhaps you are the cost." Her stomach turned. "What does that mean?" He hesitated, clutching his rosary. "Your mother came to me the night she died. She was afraid. Said the Don had made a choice that would change the bloodline forever. She begged me to hide something. Or someone." "Someone?" Matteo's lips parted to answer, then froze. His eyes darted toward the window where the faint outline of a man's silhouette moved past the glass. "Elena, you must leave," he whispered urgently. "Go home. Say nothing. But go." He pressed a small cross into her palm, closing her fingers around it. "Pray when the truth begins to whisper." Elena ran back toward the car, heart racing. When she turned for one last look, the chapel light flickered, and Father Matteo was kneeling, praying as though the walls were closing in. That night a scream echoed through the parish. By dawn, word spread. Father Matteo was dead. Authorities called it a heart attack, but Elena knew better. Driven by dread, she rushed to the chapel. The doors were unlocked. His table was littered with papers and an overturned candle, and there, in the center, lay a single piece of folded parchment. Her hands shook as she opened it. In neat, deliberate handwriting were 5 chilling words. "Ask Adrian about the child." A draft swept through the chapel, extinguishing every candle at once. In the silence that followed, somewhere behind her, a floorboard creaked, as if someone else was in the church. Elena turned sharply, but the pews were empty. Only the candle wax on the floor was fresh, still warm. The chapel was silent except for the faint drip of melted wax. Elena stood frozen, the folded note still trembling in her hand. "Ask Adrian about the child." Her pulse hammered in her ears. Somewhere beyond the stained glass windows, a storm gathered, rumbling like a buried truth clawing its way to the surface. She turned toward the pews one last time. Nothing, only shadows, and the faint smell of burning candlewick. She hurried out before courage failed her. Back at the mansion, the corridors felt colder than before, the silence thicker. Her father's voice echoed faintly from his office, giving orders to his men. She crept past, clutching the note like a secret too heavy to carry. Ask Adrian about the child. Those 5 words refused to leave her mind. But before she confronted Adrian, she needed proof. Something solid that couldn't be twisted by her father's power or the family's lies. That night, as the household slept, Elena entered her father's private quarters. The smell of expensive cigars and old leather hung heavy in the air. His razor and comb lay neatly beside the sink. Her hand shook as she plucked a strand of hair tangled in the comb. It felt wrong, stealing from him. But every instinct screamed that the truth was already being stolen from her. She sealed the strand in a plastic bag and hid it inside her coat pocket. The next morning, she drove herself, no bodyguards, no driver, to the St. Helena Medical Lab in Palermo. The technician, a quiet woman with tired eyes, didn't ask questions when Elena slid the envelope across the counter. "I need a paternity test," she whispered. "Confidential." "Of course," the woman said. "When should we expect the second sample?" "I already have it." Elena handed over the small sealed bag. "Compare it to my DNA." The woman nodded, expression unreadable. "Results in 48 hours. Those 2 days felt endless. Every creak in the mansion, every whispered phone call between guards, every look from Luca felt heavier, as though everyone but her already knew the truth. She tried to distract herself. Charity reports, social calls, even prayer. But her mind returned to the East Wing and that crying voice. Who was the child Father Matteo mentioned? Why did Adrian know about her mother's death? On the 3rd night, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message appeared. "Your results are ready. Delivering by courier within the hour." Elena's heart pounded as she waited in the library, the storm outside battering the windows. When the knock finally came, she signed the envelope, locked the door behind her, and opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single page. 2 columns. 2 names. 2 samples. Her eyes scanned down to the last line. Conclusion. Probability of paternity, 0%. She blinked, reading again. Then again. Her knees gave out, and the paper slipped from her fingers to the floor. Don Rafael Moretti, the man who raised her, the man who called her figlia mia, the man who threatened the world to keep her safe, was not her father. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, and in that instant, Elena saw her reflection in the window. Behind her reflection, another figure, standing just outside the glass, watching. The thunder rolled like cannon fire across the hills of Palermo. Elena's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the window. The shadow outside moved, deliberate, silent, then vanished into the storm. She spun, heart racing, clutching the DNA report against her chest. The words still burned in her mind. Probability of paternity, 0%. Before she could think, the library doors slammed open. "Elena!" Don Rafael stood there, drenched from the rain, eyes blazing with fury and fear. Behind him, 2 guards hovered like specters. "What are you doing?" His voice was low, dangerous. Elena tried to speak, but her throat tightened. "You lied to me." He strode forward, snatching the paper from her trembling hands. His eyes scanned it once, twice, and then the page tore in half under his grip. "You shouldn't have done this." "You're not my father," she whispered. "Who am I then? Who's my real family?" For a heartbeat, his mask slipped. Pain flickered through his eyes, replaced almost instantly by cold command. "Enough." He motioned to the guards. "Take her upstairs. Lock the door." "Papa, please." But he turned away, his voice breaking only once. "You'll thank me for this one day, Elena." The guard seized her arms, ignoring her pleas, dragging her through the echoing hallways. Portraits of her ancestors stared down as she passed, eyes accusing, faces unfamiliar. Her bedroom door slammed shut. The heavy lock clicked. Hours passed. The rain didn't stop. She paced the floor like a caged animal, whispering questions into the dark. If he isn't my father, why did he keep me? What is he afraid I'll find? Somewhere below, muffled voices argued. One of them was Luca's. Then silence again. She pressed her ear to the door. Nothing. The mansion felt different now. Less like a home, more like a fortress. Even the portrait seemed to watch her differently, as if aware of what she'd discovered. Finally, exhaustion overtook fear. She sat by the window, watching the storm fade into a silver drizzle. Then, a soft click. Her heart jolted. Someone was at the door. A narrow beam of light slid through the crack as the lock turned. Luca slipped in, his face pale, his jacket soaked from the rain. "Luca," she whispered. "What's happening? Why did he—" He raised a hand sharply. "Quiet." His voice trembled, not with fear, but urgency. "You shouldn't have done the test, Elena. Now it's too late." She frowned. "Too late for what?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "For hiding. They found you." "Who?" "The men your father's been keeping at bay for 20 years. He swallowed hard, glancing toward the window. "They know you're not his blood now, and they'll come for you because of what's inside you." Her breath hitched. "What's inside me?" Luca's eyes darkened with something like pity. Something he swore to protect, even from you. Thunder rumbled again outside as his words hung in the air. The clock in Elena's room struck midnight. Luca's whisper still hung in the air. "They'll come for you because of what's inside you." Elena's heart hammered. "Luca, what are you talking about? What's inside me?" He glanced toward the door, voice sharp. "No time. Your father's men will change shifts in 2 minutes. You must go now." She hesitated, trembling. "Go? Where?" "Anywhere but here," he said, pulling a small silver key from his pocket. "There's a tunnel beneath the wine cellar. It leads to the old docks. I'll take you there." Elena shook her head. "If Don Raphael finds out you helped me—" Luca gave a sad, crooked smile. "He already suspects, but I made a promise to your real father." Her breath caught. "My real father?" He nodded once, eyes clouded with regret. "He's not dead, Elena. At least he wasn't when Raphael betrayed him." The words sliced through her like lightning. Before she could speak again, the distant sound of boots echoed in the hall. "Move," Luca hissed. He guided her through the corridor, down a hidden stairwell concealed behind a tapestry of St. Michael slaying the dragon. Dust and darkness swallowed them as they descended. The air grew damp, smelling of earth and wine. Luca's flashlight flickered against the stone walls. "Your father built this escape after the Morandi War. Only he and I knew about it." As they reached the cellar, Elena froze. She could hear voices upstairs, guards shouting orders. Raphael's. "Find her! No one leaves this house until she's found." Luca cursed under his breath and yanked open a wooden crate. Beneath it, a rusted hatch. He pulled it open, revealing a narrow tunnel lined with dripping pipes. "Go," he urged. Elena climbed down, gripping the ladder with trembling hands. Each step echoed like thunder in her ears. The tunnel was cold, endless. Rats scurried past as she followed the dim light of Luca's flashlight. Finally, after what felt like forever, a faint ocean breeze reached her. The tunnel opened behind an abandoned warehouse near the docks. She stumbled out into the night air, gulping freedom and fear at once. Luca turned to her. "Listen carefully. There's a man in Naples. Go by the name Matteo Verano. He may know the truth. He worked with your real father before Raphael turned on him." Elena's mind spun. "Why are you helping me, Luca?" He looked away, voice low. "Because your real father saved my life once, and because Raphael's gone too far this time." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it and his face drained of color. "Elena?" His tone shifted grim. "It's already started." "What has?" He turned the screen toward her. On every major news site, The same headline flashed across breaking banners. Don Rafael Moretti announces his daughter, Elena, has been kidnapped by rival families. Her world tilted. Kidnapped? He's covering his tracks, Luca muttered. If he convinces the world you've been taken, no one will believe your side of the story. You'll be hunted from both ends. Elena's breath came in ragged gasps. He's making me the enemy. Luca nodded grimly. And soon, he'll make sure no one ever finds you alive to tell the truth. A police siren wailed in the distance. Elena turned toward the dark road ahead, the city lights glimmering like warning stars, and whispered, "Then I'll find the truth first." Luca reached for her shoulder. "Then you must move fast, because he's already unleashed the wolves." The mountain roads curled like veins through the mist. The headlights of Luca's black sedan flickered against the rain-slick asphalt as the car climbed higher, the city lights vanishing behind them. Elena gripped her coat tighter, her eyes scanning the dark forest. "Is anyone following us?" Luca glanced at the rearview mirror. Not anymore. The signal jammer worked. For now. The hum of the engine filled the silence. Outside, thunder cracked against the peaks. Hours later, they reached a clearing where the road ended. A wooden cabin stood alone, weathered but sturdy, its windows glowing faintly from the reflection of lightning. Luca killed the engine. "This place was your mother's," he said quietly. "She used to come here when things with Raphael got dangerous." Elena stepped out, the cold biting her skin. She looked around. The mountains stretched endlessly, a wall of silence. "My mother," she murmured. "He never talks about her." "He couldn't," Luca replied, grabbing a flashlight. "Her death is the reason this all began." Inside, dust coated everything. Old photographs lined the mantel. One of her mother holding a baby, face blurred by age. The cabin smelled faintly of pine and perfume, a ghost of memory frozen in time. Elena wandered to the old desk in the corner. On it lay a small leather-bound book, cracked at the edges. Her mother's name, Isabella Moretti, was etched faintly in gold. Her pulse quickened. She sat and opened it. The first page trembled beneath her fingertips. "Raphael believes our bloodline is cursed. The Moretti heirs grow weaker with each generation. He's desperate, and I fear what that desperation will make him do." Elena read on. Fragments of dates, notes, and formulas filled the margins. Her mother had written of a medical experiment, something called the Genesis Protocol, meant to renew the Moretti legacy. One line caught her breath. "The child must carry both lineages, his and the one betrayed." Her voice cracked. "Luca, this isn't just about money or power. They were trying to create something." He nodded grimly. "Your mother was a doctor before she married Raphael. She believed she could cure what he called the family sickness, but what she discovered scared him." Elena turned another page. A pressed rose fell out, dry and fragile. Beneath it, a sentence written in shaky ink. "If the experiment succeeds, the heir will not be born of sin, but of design." Her hands trembled. "What does that mean?" Luca hesitated. "It means you might be more than just his daughter, Elena." Thunder boomed, shaking the cabin walls. Elena flipped to the last page, her pulse roaring in her ears. The ink here was darker, smeared as if written in fear. "They told me it failed, that she wouldn't survive, but I feel her heartbeat when I sleep." A tear mark cut through the final line. "If she ever bears life, it begins again." Elena's hand froze. The words burned into her mind. "If she ever bears life," she whispered. "What does that mean?" Luca's eyes widened, but before he could answer, the faint red blink of a laser dot appeared on the cabin wall. He lunged forward, pulling her to the ground just as a silenced shot cracked through the window. Glass exploded. "Down!" Luca shouted, rolling behind the table. The diary hit the floor. pages flaring open as wind howled through the shattered pane. Elena's gaze flicked to the doorway. A shadow moved outside, silent and deliberate. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Smoke and dust hung in the cabin like ghosts. Luca dragged Elena toward the trapdoor beneath the rug. "Go, through here." "But the diary." He shoved it into her hands. "It's all that matters now." They dropped into the narrow crawl space beneath the cabin, crawling through dirt and roots as muffled footsteps creaked above them. The assassins were searching, their voices low and cold. Minutes later, they emerged into the forest behind the ridge, running through the rain until the cabin was only a flicker of light in the distance. Then an explosion ripped through the mountainside. The cabin was gone. Elena stumbled, clutching her chest as the shock hit her. "They're destroying everything." Luca steadied her. "They want no trace left, especially not that diary." By dawn, they reached a quiet rural town hidden beneath misty hills. Luca found a safe house, an old caretaker's quarters beside an abandoned vineyard. Elena barely spoke. Her hands shook. Her breath came uneven. For 3 days, the weight of everything crushed her. The lies, the chase, the fear. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. On the 4th morning, she collapsed. When she opened her eyes again, soft light filtered through white curtains. The air smelled of antiseptic and rain. A man in a lab coat hovered beside her bed, checking vitals. "You're awake," he said gently. "I'm Dr. Navarro. You were brought in unconscious. Severe exhaustion, mild dehydration, but otherwise stable." Elena blinked, confused. "How long was I out?" "2 days." Luca sat near the door, arms crossed, tension in his jaw. "I found this clinic through an old contact. It's off-grid." Dr. Navarro smiled faintly. "Your body's stronger than it should be after such stress. It's remarkable." He hesitated. "There's something else. We ran routine scans and found something unexpected." Elena frowned. "Unexpected?" He pulled up her file on a tablet. "Ms. Moretti, you're pregnant." The words hit like a thunderclap. Elena sat up, shaking her head. "That's impossible." Dr. Navarro's voice softened. "The results were conclusive. 4 weeks, approximately." Her heart raced. "You don't understand. I've never—" She stopped, her breath catching. "I've never been with anyone." Silence filled the room. Even Luca looked away, unsure how to process it. Dr. Navarro spoke carefully now. "Medically, I can't explain it. Your vitals, hormone levels, they're perfectly normal. But there's something unique about the cellular readings, almost—" He stopped himself, closing the file. "Perhaps it's just a testing anomaly. We'll repeat it in the morning." Elena stared blankly at the ceiling as he left. The words from her mother's diary echoed in her mind. If she ever bears life, it begins again. She whispered it aloud, trembling. "What did you do to me, Mother?" Luca stepped closer. "Whatever this is, we'll find the truth. But we need those results to prove it." Morning light crept across the clinic floor. Elena awoke to birdsong and distant thunder. Too still, too quiet. "Luca?" she called softly. No answer. She stood and peeked into the hallway. The clinic was empty. No nurses, no sound. She pushed open Dr. Navarro's office door. The desk was overturned, the tablet shattered. His coat hung on the chair, streaked with blood. The computer screen blinked once, then went dark. Every file labeled Moretti. E vanished line by line before her eyes. Her blood ran cold. On the wall behind the desk, a message scrawled in red marker. "Silence the miracle." Elena spun around, her pulse racing. "Who's there?" A hand covered her mouth before she could scream. The grip was firm, familiar. "Quiet, figlia mia," came the low voice. "If I found you, so will they." Her eyes widened. Don Raphael. He stood before her in the dim light of the ruined office, coat damp from rain, face drawn but commanding. The years of power hadn't faded from his gaze, but tonight his eyes held something else. Fear. Elena stumbled back. How dare you come here after... He raised a hand. Listen to me. There's no time for your anger. They're moving faster than I expected. Who? He hesitated, glancing at the words on the wall. Silence the miracle. The same men who funded your mother's research. The same men who now want you dead. Elena's voice shook. You said my mother's death was an accident. His jaw clenched. It was no accident. She made a discovery she was never meant to make. He paced, the weight of years pressing on every step. Your mother, Isabella, was brilliant. She believed she could cure the Moretti bloodline, the curse that weakened us. But when science met ambition, something unexpected happened. Elena's heart pounded. What happened? Raphael turned toward her, the truth burning behind his eyes. She carried an embryo, not yours, not mine. A creation of both her DNA and the DNA of a man she trusted. A hybrid meant to preserve the Moretti lineage. But when you were born, she believed it failed. Elena shook her head slowly, the world spinning. You're saying I'm not even fully human? You're saying too little. He snapped, then softened. You're my daughter in every way that matters. But what's inside you, Elena? It isn't ordinary. It's something that was meant to remain dormant. Until now. Her breath caught. You mean the pregnancy? Raphael nodded, voice barely above a whisper. Your body reactivated what your mother called Project Genesis. You're carrying what they believe to be the continuation, the next heir of that experiment. Elena's chest tightened. That's why the doctor disappeared, why they erased everything. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You must trust me now. I can protect you. She recoiled. You lied to me my entire life, locked me away, called me your blood when you knew the truth. His voice cracked. Because I loved you as my own. And because I swore a pact to your mother before she died, to protect you no matter what it cost me. Elena froze. A pact? He nodded. She knew this day would come. She called it the awakening, and she warned me. If the embryo ever activated, the ones who funded her research would come for it. Who are they? Raphael hesitated, then uttered the name like poison. The Verano Syndicate. Elena's eyes widened. Adrian Voss. His alias is Adrian Verano. Raphael's face hardened. He's not a journalist. He's her partner's son, the true heir to your mother's science, and he wants what's inside you. Before she could react, the lights flickered. Then, gunfire. Glass shattered. The clinic erupted in chaos as bullets tore through the windows. Luca burst through the back door, shouting, Down! They found us! Raphael drew his gun, firing toward the front. Move! Out the back! Elena ducked beneath a counter as sparks rained from the ceiling. The air filled with smoke and the scream of gunfire. Through the haze, she saw them, men in black, masks glinting under emergency lights. One of them bore a red insignia on his chest, a V with a serpent coiled through it. Luca grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the exit. Raphael shouted over the noise, They're not here to capture you anymore, they're here to end you. Elena's eyes locked on him. Then I'm not running. She picked up the fallen gun from the floor, her mother's diary still clutched in her other hand. As she cocks the weapon, a flash grenade explodes. The blast left her ears ringing. Smoke clawed at her lungs as Elena stumbled outside into the cold night, Luca dragging her toward a waiting car. Where's Raphael? She gasped. Luca's jaw was set. Gone. Either captured or he wanted us to think so. They sped into the forest, headlights slicing through fog. The rain came hard, blurring the road until the world itself felt like it was washing away. Hours later, they reached an abandoned hunting cabin deep in the mountains, their only refuge. Inside, Luca barricaded the door and checked his weapon. We'll be safe here for now. Elena slumped against the wall, clutching her mother's diary, pages smeared with rain and blood. Safe? From who? Adrian's men? Raphael's ghosts? Or whatever I'm carrying inside me? Luca hesitated, eyes haunted. There's something you need to know before they find us. Before she could press him, the silence outside shattered. Engines, boots, voices, the sound of an army surrounding them. Luca moved to the window. They're here. A voice echoed through a megaphone commanding, chillingly calm. Elena Moretti, this doesn't have to end in blood. Give me the files, or give me her. Elena froze. That voice, she knew it. Adrian. The door rattled under the impact of the first ram. The second blow cracked the hinges. Luca raised his gun, shouting over his shoulder, "Go to the back room, now!" She didn't move. "Tell me the truth first, Luca. You know him, don't you?" The third hit splintered the wood. Luca turned, anguish flooding his face. "Yes, I know him. Because the man out there, Adrian Voss, isn't just your enemy." He hesitated, pain thick in his voice. "He's your biological father." Elena's knees nearly buckled. "No, that's impossible." Raphael said. "Raphael lied," Luca interrupted. "He raised you to protect you. Adrian and your mother created you in the lab, a hybrid meant to stabilize the human genome. But when your mother realized what it would cost you, she ran. Raphael hid you, erased the past. Adrian spent years searching for you." The door crashed open. A dozen men poured in, black uniforms, visors flashing red in the dark, and behind them, Adrian Voss. He stepped forward, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes cold fire. "So this is what my daughter has become, under a fugitive among thieves." Elena stared at him, trembling. "You're not my father. You're a monster who turned science into sin." He tilted his head slightly as though the words barely grazed him. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to make you a weapon?" Luca fired a warning shot. Splinters flew. "Stay where you are." Adrian didn't flinch. His voice rose above the chaos. "That child she carries, it's not human. It's evolving. Do you even know what's happening inside her?" Elena backed away, shaking her head. "You're lying." Adrian took a slow step forward, lowering his weapon. "You were never meant to give birth. You were meant to be the vessel, the carrier of the code your mother and I built, the key to rewriting humanity itself." Luca's gun wavered. "Enough." "Don't you get it?" Adrian shouted, desperation cracking his tone. "If that child is born, it will destroy everything, every genome, every cell it touches. It will end us all." The cabin lights flickered. Outside, thunder rolled like an omen. Elena's breath came in shallow bursts as realization hit. The miracle inside her wasn't a blessing. It was a countdown. Luca turned to her, eyes wide with horror. "Elena, what did they do to you?" Adrian's soldiers raise their weapons. The floor trembles. A deep, pulsing sound echoes from Elena's body. She looks down, clutching her abdomen as light begins to pulse beneath her skin. The light faded as quickly as it came, leaving the room drenched in silence and fear. The soldiers hesitated, their rifles trembling, unsure if they were facing a woman or something far beyond their comprehension. Then, from outside, Adrian's voice broke through. "Hold your fire! She's destabilizing. If you hit her now, we all die." In the confusion, Luca grabbed Elena's hand and dragged her toward the back exit. They sprinted through the rain-soaked forest, bullets whizzing through the trees, thunder masking the chaos. The pulse beneath her skin slowed, but the ache inside her chest grew sharper, like something ancient trying to wake. By the time they reached the valley road, Luca was bleeding from his shoulder, crimson soaking through his jacket. He slumped beside a rusted truck hidden in the bushes. "Go," he rasped. "You can't slow down now." "I'm not leaving you," Elena said, voice trembling but fierce. She tore a strip from her sleeve and bound his wound, her hands shaking. "You're all I have left." They drove through the night, the forest fading into winding cliffs. Every mile away from the cabin felt like a reprieve and a countdown. Elena's mind replayed Adrian's words again and again. "You were never meant to give birth. You were meant to be the vessel." When they finally stopped at a remote motel, Luca passed out from blood loss. As he slept, Elena rifled through his bag and found a small metallic drive, Adrian's. She connected it to her tablet, heart pounding. The screen flickered to life, revealing a set of encrypted medical notes marked Project Reborn Heir. The text was fragmented, full of codes and genetic schematics she didn't understand, but the headings chilled her. Subject EM01, dormant genetic sequence active upon conception. Reactivation triggered by biological inheritance anomaly. Outcome: unpredictable, containment required. She scrolled further until she reached the final page. A signature, Dr. Adrian Voss, and beneath it, a handwritten line, faint but legible. If EM01 survives gestation, return to origin site. Then, coordinates. Elena typed them into the map, her pulse quickening as a location appeared on the screen. The Moretti estate. But not the mansion above. The coordinates pointed below it. A hidden facility buried under the family home and sealed off decades ago. She whispered, "A lab under my house." Luca stirred, pain etched into his face. "What did you find?" She turned the screen toward him. "The truth, or what's left of it." He looked at her with weary eyes. "Elena, if we go back there, you might not come out alive." Her gaze hardened. "I'm already dying in pieces, Luca. If the answers are there, I have to see them." A rumble outside interrupted them, a convoy of black SUVs speeding past the motel road, heading in the same direction. Elena's blood ran cold. "They're going there too." Luca struggled to his feet. "Then we move now, before Adrian reaches it first." She helped him into the truck, determination replacing fear. As the engine roared to life, rain lashed against the windshield, a storm gathering over their path back to the ruins of her past. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the flickering pain, the pulse returned. Faint, rhythmic, like a second heartbeat responding to the storm. As the truck vanished down the mountain road, Elena's tablet screen, still open on the encrypted file, glitched. A final line of text appeared, self-activated by the GPS signal. "Welcome home, subject EM01. The rebirth protocol is now active." The rain pounded harder as the truck sped down the winding road toward the Moretti estate. The message on the screen pulsed like a living thing, its words engraving themselves into Elena's mind. "Subject EM01. She touched her stomach. The faint warmth beneath her skin answered. They arrived before dawn. The mansion loomed like a ghost from another century. The same walls that had once hidden laughter now swallowed sound. Guards no longer patrolled. It felt deserted. Too deserted. Luca guided her to the east wing, now scarred by time and silence. Behind the nursery's old bookshelf, a biometric scanner glowed faintly. Elena hesitated, then pressed her trembling palm to it. The scanner blinked green. A hiss filled the room as the floor panels slid open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into cold light. The air below was sterile and humming, a world built of glass, steel, and forgotten sins. Dust floated like ghosts over flickering monitors. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Rows of cryogenic pods lined the walls, glowing blue like frozen stars. Elena's breath caught when she saw the nameplates. EM01, EM02, EM03. Every pod carried her initials. Everyone held her face. Perfect replicas of herself, sleeping, suspended in liquid light. She staggered back, her mind spinning. No, this can't be real. A voice echoed from the shadows. It is real, figlia mia. More real than you could ever imagine. Don Raphael stepped forward, his expression heavy, not with power, but guilt. He looked older than she remembered, broken beneath the weight of too many buried truths. "Why?" Elena whispered. "Why me?" He reached out but didn't touch her. "Your mother was dying. We tried to save her. She was brilliant. She helped create the serum meant to preserve her line, her intelligence, her heart. But the experiment, it fractured." He gestured toward the pods. "These were attempts to sustain her essence. Only one survived. You." Elena's eyes brimmed with tears. "So I'm—" "Not my blood," Raphael finished softly, "but my daughter all the same. I raised you to protect what your mother left behind, her purity, her potential." Luca looked horrified. "You cloned her? You turned her child into an experiment?" Raphael's voice hardened. "I saved her. Without me, she would have been ashes in the ground." Before Elena could respond, the lab doors burst open, the metallic echo of boots pounding the floor. Floodlights cut through the fog. Adrian Voss stepped into the light, soaked and furious, flanked by two of his surviving men. "You didn't save her," he shouted. "You stole her work." Raphael turned sharply. "Adrian, this isn't your fight anymore." "Oh, it is," Adrian snapped. "You turned her miracle into a weapon." Elena looked between them, confusion mounting. "What miracle?" Adrian's voice softened, pained. "Your mother designed this project to cure genetic decay, not create heirs. She wanted to heal the bloodlines born with disease, not enslave them under one name." He stepped closer, eyes locked on Raphael. "You turned her cure into control." Raphael's silence confirmed it. The hum of the machines seemed to grow louder, almost angry. Then suddenly the pods behind them flickered. One by one they powered on, the glass vibrating. Elena turned, horrified, as a line of readouts flashed across the monitors. "Sequence initiated. Embryo activation detected." Alarms wailed through the lab. Red lights spun across the ceiling as hydraulic locks began to disengage. Raphael's face went pale. "No, not again." Elena shouted over the alarms. "What's happening?" Adrian's eyes widened. "The rebirth protocol, it's responding to you." The pod nearest to her cracked open, mist spilling out, and from within, a hand emerged, reaching into the light. Elena stared, frozen, as the figure inside stepped forward. Her exact replica, eyes open, breathing, whispering her name. For a heartbeat, the lab was silent. Then chaos erupted. The clone's first breath sounded like a cry ripped from the void. Monitors flickered, alarms screamed, and the air filled with the hiss of failing containment seals. Elena stumbled backward, her reflection, her twin, staring at her with eyes that knew too much. Who are you?" she whispered. The clone tilted her head, movements eerily familiar. "You already know. I am what they made you forget." Don Raphael drew his pistol. "Stay back, both of you." Adrian lunged forward, shoving Raphael's arm aside. "You idiot! Shooting her could kill them both." Luca moved between Elena and the chaos, his gun trained low. "Everyone calm down, before you destroy what's left of this place." The clone stepped closer to Elena, trembling, voice soft. "They called me EM02. You were the success. I was the remainder." Raphael's face darkened. "You should never have awakened." Adrian's fury exploded. "You mean murdered? Like you murdered her mother to bury your sins?" Elena's head snapped toward him. "What did you say?" Adrian glared at Raphael, voice breaking with rage. "Tell her, Don. Tell her how her mother died because of you." Raphael's jaw tightened, his tone a cold blade. "She died because you broke the protocol. You injected her with an unstable compound. I begged her to stop, but she wanted to save you, her lover." Elena's world tilted. "Lover?" she breathed. "You mean—" Adrian nodded slowly, pain in his eyes. "Yes, I loved her, and she loved me. You are her legacy, but you are not his daughter." Raphael roared, striking him across the face. "Lies! She chose me. I gave her safety when your ideals nearly killed her. The argument spiraled. Two men bound by love, guilt, and betrayal. Sparks from the damaged equipment painted their shadows against the walls like specters from the past. Elena stepped between them, tears burning. Enough! Her voice echoed through the lab. I don't care who loved whom. I want the truth. She slammed her hand on the main console. Screens blinked alive, revealing archived feeds, decades old. Static crackled, then flickered into grainy footage. Her mother appeared, pale, radiant, clutching a newborn. Adrian took a step forward. That's the night she died. But something was wrong. The timestamp didn't match the night recorded in the death file. The footage continued. Her mother looked into the camera, whispering something neither man could hear. Then she turned and disappeared into the hallway. Another figure followed her. A woman in medical scrubs carrying a small bundle. A second infant. Elena's voice trembled. No, there were two. Luca enlarged the feed, enhancing the image. The second baby wore a bracelet, identical to the one Elena had found in the nursery weeks ago. Adrian's eyes widened. It can't be. Raphael paled. She took one. She took the other child. Elena's heart pounded like thunder. My twin. The feed glitched, switching angles, showing the outer gate of the estate. Her mother, alive, stepping into a black car with the infant. She turned back once, eyes full of sorrow, and whispered something before the screen froze. The lab fell silent. Elena's breath hitched, her voice barely a whisper. She didn't die here. She left. Adrian pressed his hand to the console. Then the experiment didn't fail. It split. Before Elena could speak, the power surged. All screens turned to black except one, the live security feed. It showed the same gate, decades later, now open. And in the headlights of an approaching car stood a woman, identical to Elena, older, holding a child. Luca whispered, Elena, she's coming here. The room froze as the monitor flickered, the image of the woman outside the gate searing into their eyes. She was Elena's mirror, older, sharper, holding a child wrapped in gray. Rain fell around her like a curtain of time breaking open. Elena's breath trembled. She's real. Luca whispered, your twin. Before anyone could react, the power snapped. The screen went black, plunging the lab into darkness. A moment later, the emergency lights flickered to life, and Adrian was gone. One of the cryopods, too. Raphael's roar cut through the silence. Find him! Luca drew his weapon, scanning the shadows. He can't have gone far. But Elena wasn't listening. Her eyes were on the empty pod chamber. Its ID tag read EM03. The same sequence tied to her mother's final experiments. He took her, Elena whispered. Another embryo, or something worse. They rushed upstairs through the secret stairwell, emerging into the wrecked east wing. Outside, dawn crept over the horizon, pale and cold. The main gate stood ajar, tire tracks cutting through the mud. Whoever the twin was, she hadn't waited. Luca hacked into the estate's security backups, replaying the feed. There, the car. Black sedan, tinted windows, no plates. She didn't come alone. Raphael leaned over his shoulder. Those vehicles belonged to them. The board? Elena asked. He nodded grimly. The hidden investors behind Project Rebirth. They funded the experiments, then erased the evidence. If your sister's with them... Elena's pulse quickened. Then she's in danger. Raphael turned to her, voice low. You don't understand. If they discover what's inside you, what's growing, they'll take you both. She met his gaze, steady now. Then we find her first. Luca grabbed a duffel of weapons and data drives. Where do we start? Elena pointed to the encrypted map on her tablet, a signal beacon pulsing faintly from the outskirts of Verona. There. It's the only active tracking node tied to EM03. They left the estate behind, its secrets sinking into silence again. The drive was long and tense, rain blurring the world into streaks of silver. Raphael trailed in another car, his men spread across different routes. At dawn, they reached an abandoned industrial compound, the beacon's source. Broken glass crunched underfoot as they entered. The smell of chemicals hung heavy in the air. "Stay sharp," Luca muttered. "If Adrian's here—" A sound cut him off, the faint echo of a child's cry. Elena froze. It wasn't far. She followed it down a corridor lined with shattered mirrors. Her reflection fractured with every step. The cry stopped. A shadow moved. Adrian stepped out from behind a pillar, unarmed, breathing hard, eyes wild. "Adrian!" Elena shouted. "Where is she?" He hesitated, shaking his head. "You shouldn't have come." Before Luca could reach him, a dart whistled from the dark, striking Adrian's neck. He collapsed instantly. Elena spun around, gun drawn, but no one was there. Only the sound of distant footsteps fading. Luca knelt beside Adrian's body. "Tranquilizer. Professional." He looked up. They took her again. Raphael's voice crackled through the radio, urgent. "Elena, pull out now. The board's men are closing in." But before she could respond, her tablet buzzed. A new message flashed across the cracked screen. No number, no traceable source. "You want your sister alive? Bring me the other pod. You have 12 hours. Elena's hands went cold. She looked at Luca, fear and fury intertwining in her eyes. "They know what I have," she whispered. "And now," Luca said grimly, "they're hunting you for it." A single image attached to the message flickered to life. Her twin bound to a chair, eyes open, a single tear tracing her cheek as a voice in the background whispered, "One sister was born to live, the other to awaken." The message replayed in Elena's mind long after the screen went black. The image of her twin, terrified, bound, silent, burned behind her eyes. The ultimatum was clear. 12 hours, one pod, no rescue. Luca's voice cut through the static hum of the truck engine. "It's a trap." "I know," Elena said quietly, gripping the pod beside her. The last remaining capsule marked EM04, the same one Adrian had nearly stolen before disappearing. "But if I don't go," she added, "she dies because of me." Raphael's voice crackled through the comms. "Elena, listen to me. They want the technology, not her. They'll kill you both once they have it." Elena's tone hardened. "Then I'll give them something they're not expecting." By dusk, they reached the meeting point, an abandoned pier stretching into black, endless water. The wind howled across the wooden planks, carrying the scent of salt and old secrets. Floodlights flickered on one by one as Elena stepped out, the pod in her arms. Luca scanned the shadows with his weapon drawn. "No movement yet, but we're being watched." A figure emerged from the mist. Adrian, limping, bruised, eyes hollow from exhaustion. Luca raised his gun instantly. "You sold us out." Adrian shook his head. "No. They used me. They took your twin to force my hand. But you need to hear me before it's too late." Elena's grip on the pod tightened. "Talk." He gestured toward the capsule. "That's not a child, Elena. What's inside you, what's inside that, isn't biological. It's the cure your mother designed. A living sequence meant to rewrite genetic corruption itself." Luca frowned. "You mean a virus?" "A remedy," Adrian corrected. "She called it the Genesis sequence. It could heal the incurable. But Raphael twisted it into something else. He tried to breed it into a bloodline." Elena's pulse pounded in her ears. "Then why me?" Adrian's eyes softened. "Because your DNA was the only one stable enough to awaken it. When you conceived, even unknowingly, it reactivated." She staggered back, confusion and fear blurring into one. "So I'm carrying a cure?" "A cure," Adrian said quietly. or the end of humanity. It depends on who controls it. A metallic click echoed through the fog. Luca spun, too late. A laser dot appeared on Adrian's chest. "Sniper!" Luca shouted. He shoved Elena down just as a gunshot split the night. Adrian crumpled, clutching his shoulder, the bullet sparking off the pier behind him. Elena crawled toward him, panic rising. "Adrian!" he grimaced. "Forget me. They're here for you." More red dots danced across the wooden planks. Shadows moved among the shipping crates, mercenaries in tactical gear, their rifles gleaming in the fog. Luca pulled Elena behind a cargo barrier. "Stay low. They're not negotiating anymore." She clutched the pod to her chest, breath shaking. "They'll kill her if I don't give this to them." "Then they'll kill you too," Luca barked. "And everything your mother died to protect dies with you." A voice rang out from the mist. Calm, commanding, female. "Elena Moretti," it called. "We have your sister. Bring the pod forward and she lives." Elena's hand trembled as she peeked over the crate. Through the fog she saw her twin, on her knees, gun to her head. Luca grabbed her arm. "Wait, it's not what it looks like." She turned, confused, but his eyes weren't on her. They were fixed on a reflection in the glass behind her. A sniper's scope, lined directly with her heart. He moved before she could think, throwing himself in front of her. The gunshot cracked like thunder. Luca's body jerked, and the pod slipped from her hands, rolling toward the pier's edge. "Luca!" she screamed, catching him as he fell, blood staining her dress. The pod teetered on the edge, blinking, one soft pulse of light. Then it rolled over and disappeared into the dark water below. Elena looked down at the waves swallowing the pod. Gunfire thundered through the fog as Elena dragged Luca behind a stack of crates, her trembling hands slick with his blood. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing her palm against his wound. His breath came in shallow gasps, his eyes unfocused, yet still locked on her. "You have to run," he rasped. "I'm not leaving you," she cried. But even as she said it, helicopters roared overhead, floodlights cutting through the mist like divine judgment. Then suddenly, sirens, real ones. Interpol's insignia flashed across the pier as armed agents swarmed in. The mercenaries scattered. The mysterious female voice barked a retreat order. Within minutes, they vanished, as if swallowed by the night. Elena was still on her knees when an agent pulled her away. "Ma'am, we have to move, now." She looked down one last time at Luca, who was slipping into unconsciousness. "Save him," she begged. The medic nodded. Hours later, under sterile hospital lights, Elena stared blankly at the glass wall separating her from Luca's recovery room. Machines beeped steadily beside him. He was alive. Barely. But when she blinked, they were gone. So was he. A note lay on the chair where she had fallen asleep. "He's safe. Don't look for him. Witness Protection Division." Her heart broke quietly. Determined not to let his sacrifice be in vain, Elena handed the remaining data drives and genetic samples to the World Bioethics Council, walking into their Geneva headquarters flanked by armed escorts. Every secret she had uncovered, every file, recording, and encrypted note, was surrendered. 2 weeks later, the world woke up to chaos. Breaking news flashed across every screen. Mafia syndicate exposed for decades of illegal genetic research. Interpol raids Moretti estate, Don Raphael missing. Elena stood before the press, weary but unflinching. Cameras clicked like gunfire as she recounted everything. Her mother's experiments, the manipulation of bloodlines, and the truth behind the Genesis sequence. She made one promise. This will never be used as a weapon again. Her face was splashed across front pages worldwide. Politicians praised her courage. Scientists called her testimony the most significant biological revelation of the century. But in her heart, she felt only the hollow ache of everything she'd lost. Her father, her twin, Luca, the life she never asked for. That night, She sat in a quiet hotel room overlooking Lake Geneva, staring at the faint light on the horizon. The reflection in the window showed a woman forever changed, not just by tragedy, but by truth. A sudden vibration on her phone drew her attention. A news alert blinked onto the screen. She opened it slowly. Front page headline: Don Raphael's daughter carries humanity's hope. Genetic miracle confirmed by leaked reports. Her pulse stopped. Below the headline was a photo, grainy, infrared, taken near the crash site where the pod had fallen into the sea. The image showed a faint pulsing light beneath the waves, still alive, still glowing, and the caption beneath it sent a chill through her veins. Unknown biological signal detected off Sicily's coast. Experts confirm it's growing. Elena's breath hitched. The pod, the cure, wasn't gone. It was awakening. Elena whispered to herself, voice trembling with dread and awe. It's not over. It's beginning again. Outside, lightning split the clouds. As deep beneath the sea, something stirred. 6 months later, the storm had passed, at least on paper. The Moretti Empire was gone, their estates seized, and Elena's name now appeared on humanitarian panels instead of police lists. She lived quietly in a seaside town in southern France, where the world pretended to move on, but Elena couldn't. Not really. Every night she dreamed of that pulsing light beneath the water, a heartbeat she could still feel beneath her ribs. Some mornings, she woke with her palms damp, as though she'd been holding something alive. The world had crowned her a savior. She only felt like a ghost. One cold evening, as dusk swallowed the horizon, a courier knocked on her door. Delivery for Miss Moretti. I didn't order anything, she said. He just smiled faintly. I was told you'd say that. He left before she could ask another word. The package was small, wrapped in unmarked brown paper, sealed with a strip of wax, old-fashioned, deliberate. Her name wasn't printed, it was engraved into the surface. Her hands trembled as she carried it inside, placing it on her desk beside framed photos of her mother and Luca. She hesitated, then broke the seal. Inside was a single photograph. A newborn, pale, delicate, wrapped in a white blanket, staring straight into the lens with haunting familiarity. Her heart froze. The child's eyes were unmistakable. Her eyes. At first, she thought it might have been one of her old baby photos, until she turned it over. Fresh ink bled across the back of the photo in precise handwriting. No one knew, until tonight. Her breath caught in her throat. A faint sound echoed outside. A car engine idling too long. A shadow moving past her window. Instinct kicked in. She grabbed the photo and checked the postmark on the package. It wasn't from France. It wasn't from Europe. It was from Sicily. Her pulse quickened. The coordinates written beneath the stamp matched the same coastline where the pod had sunk months ago. Lightning flickered again beyond the sea. A cruel mirror of the night, everything changed. She stood by the window gripping the photo as the storm rolled in. Her reflection trembled in the glass, and for the first time, she noticed something impossible. Behind her reflection, over her shoulder, was the faint outline of a child's silhouette. Small, motionless, watching. She spun around. Nothing, only shadows. Then her phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. He's waiting for you where it all began. Elena's knees nearly gave way. She looked again at the photograph, this time noticing a detail she'd missed before. A silver medallion lay beside the infant's hand, the Moretti crest, and beneath it, an etched code, E02. Her heart thundered. E01 was her mother's code name in the experiment logs. E02 could only mean one thing: the twin, the missing child, her sister, or perhaps something else entirely. Wind rattled the windows. Thunder cracked. Somewhere in the distance, a baby's cry echoed faintly through the storm, soft, melodic, and far too familiar. Elena clutched the photo to her chest, whispering, "If you're real, I'm coming for you." But as she turned off the light, the camera hidden in her ceiling blinked red, transmitting the image of her face to an unknown receiver. A figure in a dark control room watched the live feed. The same photo of the child lay on his desk. He smiled faintly and murmured, "She thinks it's her sister, but it's her creation." Then he pressed send, triggering a new message to Elena's phone. "Welcome home, Project EM." The night she returned to Sicily, the sky burned crimson over the sea, the same sea that had once swallowed her destiny. Elena stepped out of the boat, clutching the photograph in one hand and her trembling resolve in the other. The ruins of the Moretti mansion loomed above the cliffs, half devoured by vines, half frozen in time. Each step toward that broken place felt like walking into a memory she never lived. The great hall was silent now, stripped of chandeliers, draped in dust and smelling faintly of smoke and salt. Lightning cracked across the marble floor, illuminating the remnants of her childhood. A scorched piano, the portrait of her mother half burned, and the door to the east wing she was once forbidden to enter. It was open. Elena's breath hitched. She entered. In the center of the ruined nursery stood a teenage girl, pale, barefoot, her hair tangled in silver light. The resemblance was terrifying. Her face, her eyes, her very expression, all mirrors of Elena's own. She turned slowly, lips parting as if remembering how to speak. "Elena." The sound of her name, spoken in her own voice, froze the world. Before she could answer, heavy boots echoed down the corridor. Armed agents in black stormed the hall, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Behind them, restrained in handcuffs, was Adrian Voss, older, thinner, but very much alive. "Stop," he shouted, his voice raw. "Don't touch her." Elena spun toward him. "Adrian, what have you done?" He shook his head violently, blood on his temple. "You don't understand. They were never after you." His eyes darted to the silent girl. They were after her. The twin stepped back, clutching her stomach as a strange glow pulsed beneath her skin. Faint, rhythmic, alive. The same glow Elena had seen beneath the sea. "Elena," Adrian gasped, falling to his knees. "She's the true carrier. The cure. She's awakening. But if they take her, they'll turn her into a weapon." Gunfire erupted outside. Windows shattered. The agents turned, chaos unfolding as hidden drones swarmed the estate. Adrian lunged forward, breaking free just long enough to shove a detonator into Elena's hand. "End it before they do." "No!" she cried. "There has to be another way." But the walls were already trembling. The twin reached out, eyes wide with terror, and whispered, "It's too late." A blinding flash tore through the mansion. Fire roared through the corridors, devouring marble, portraits, and secrets. Elena grabbed her twin's hand, pulling her close as the ceiling collapsed above them. "Hold on." "I'm not afraid," the twin said softly. "We were never meant to live separately." Their fingers intertwined, perfect reflections locked in flame and shadow. The explosion swallowed everything. Through the firelight and falling ash, two silhouettes stood hand in hand. One collapsed. The other stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly gold, the mark of Project EM flickering beneath her skin. The screen faded to black as sirens wailed in the distance. A single news broadcast crackled through the static. "Explosion at the old Moretti estate. No confirmed survivors, but witnesses report seeing two identical figures walking from the fire." Then silence. A charred photograph drifts onto the ground, the same baby picture from the package, now half burned. Scrawled across the back, barely visible through soot and blood, are 5 chilling words. "The legacy has just begun.